In the bustling city of Lagos, where dreams rise as fast as the sun and gossip travels faster than the wind, lived Adaora, a woman whose life seemed neatly written until. Adaora was in her late 30s, elegant and self-assured, the kind of woman whose presence commanded respect the moment she walked into a room. She had built her career from scratch, climbing through the storms of competition until she became a woman many admired but secretly envied. People whispered behind her back. They called her proud, they called her bossy, they called her someone who no man could handle. Yet Adaora carried herself with grace, always dressed in sharp, classy outfits that made her stand out. She had friends in high places, colleagues who respected her, and juniors who feared her strictness. But inside, Adaora had her own quiet battles, a longing for something deeper, something warmer than all her achievements, true love. And then came Charles. Charles was everything society said should never stand beside a woman like Adaora. He was younger, a tech bro in his late 20s, fresh-faced, full of energy, and handsome in that effortless way that made heads turn. He wasn't just a pretty face, he was intelligent, ambitious, and bold. But when people saw him with Adaora, the whispers began. How can she be with him? They asked. She's too old for him. She will never respect him. He's just a boy, and she's a woman who needs a man her age. Even Adaora's closest friends teased her. Some said she was babysitting. Others warned her that a younger man would only use her and dump her. Yet Charles never flinched. He loved Adaora with a sincerity that was rare, and he wasn't afraid to show it. One day in Adaora's office, something happened that silenced many of those doubts. A heated situation broke out between her and some of her staff, a clash of authority that threatened to embarrass her in front of everyone. People expected Adaora to explode as usual, but instead, it was Charles who stepped in. Calmly yet firmly, he took charge. His voice carried authority, his tone was commanding, and his presence filled the room. Enough, he said, and even Adaora found herself obeying. He turned to her, not as her boyish lover, but as a man in control, and told her to go inside. To the shock of everyone, Adaora, the Iron Lady, quietly obliged. And later that day, she cooked for him with her own hands, a simple meal she carried to his office, smiling shyly like a woman in love. Those who said she would never respect him were silenced, for in that moment Adaora had shown that respect is not about age, but about the strength of love and the power of character. But love stories are never without their storms. One day, Charles invited Adaora to his school reunion. At first, she refused. I can't go with you, she said bitterly. What will people think? They'll laugh at us. They'll laugh at me. But Chike insisted gently, assuring her that it didn't matter what anyone thought, only what they shared together. At last, Adaora agreed. The reunion was lively, filled with old classmates reconnecting, laughter spilling across the hall, and music that brought back youthful memories. But soon, the whispers began. When Adaora walked in beside Charles, heads turned. Some smiled politely, others smirked openly. A group of younger, beautiful girls stared at her, then at Charles, and one of them giggled, asking if that was his elder sister. Adaora's heart clenched, but she forced a smile. Things grew worse. When Charles excused himself to the restroom, the girls gathered near Adaora and gossiped deliberately loud enough for her to hear. He'll use her and dump her, one said. She looks like his grandma. Wait until he remembers his high school sweetheart. Another laughed, exactly, his ex Soline will finish this woman. They had barely finished speaking when Soline arrived. She was breathtaking, the kind of beauty that drew admiration from everyone. The room lit up with cheers as old classmates welcomed her. When Charles returned, Soline wasted no time, smiling sweetly and trying to pull him into old conversations. But Charles, standing tall, proudly introduced Adaora as his girlfriend. His ex chuckled mockingly, and Adaora's insecurity deepened. The music began, and Charles pulled Adaora to the dance floor. For a moment, they swayed together, lost in each other. But then Soline made her move. Slyly, she drifted close, her body brushing against Charles's, her smile daring. And soon, Adaora found herself pushed aside as Charles, carried away by the rhythm, began dancing with Soline with his hands brushing her waist. He didn't notice how it looked. He didn't realize how his touches appeared. But Adaora noticed everything. Then came the final blow. A voice whispered behind her, cruel and sharp, "You see. He desires a hottie, not a grandma." Tears burned in Adaora's eyes. She turned away, her heart breaking, and walked out of the hall. She went to her car, sat inside, and wept silently, wiping her eyes with trembling hands. Minutes later, Charles realized she was gone. He scanned the hall, searched frantically, and finally rushed outside. He found her in the car, her eyes red, her spirit wounded. He entered quickly, desperate to explain. "Babe, please, I would never hurt you. We were just dancing. I got carried away by the..." Adaora cut him off, her voice trembling. "By the young waist, right?" "No," he said softly, almost broken. "By the music. Addy, I love you. I will never do anything to hurt you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me." But Adaora couldn't hold it in any longer. She told him everything the girls had said, how they mocked her, how they made her feel like nothing more than a mistake. Charles held her hand, kissed her tears, and begged her to see his heart. Slowly, painfully, she realized that despite her fears, this man before her truly loved her. That night, after a deep kiss that spoke louder than words, he drove her home, waved goodbye, and booked a cab back to his place. Their love continued to blossom, but the storms didn't end. One afternoon, Charles visited Adaora's office. He walked in just as some of her old friends were visiting. They looked at him with surprise and exclaimed, "Oh, Ada, so you have a cute kid brother." Charles froze. He waited for Adaora to correct them, to proudly declare that he was not her brother, but her man. But she was silent. Ashamed, she nodded weakly, letting them believe the lie. Charles sat there, heart heavy, while they went on gossiping about Adaora's ex and suggesting she should find a mature man, someone her age, someone who fit her better. When he could take no more, Charles stood up and left. Adaora knew instantly she had hurt him. She rushed to his house later that evening, but her attempt at explanation turned into a heated argument. Charles's pain spilled out in sharp words. "If you're too ashamed to tell your friends I'm your man, then what are we doing here?" The fight grew fierce. At last, Charles said, his voice breaking, "Look, Adaora, maybe we should take a break. Let's reevaluate things. If we still find our way back to each other, then so be it. But if you find a mature man that fits you better, go ahead. I won't stop you from what you desire." His words shattered her. And just like that, they broke up. Days turned into weeks, and the pain lingered. Charles met other young women, but none of them carried the fire, the tenderness, the elegance of Adaora. Adaora met men her age, some successful, some eager, but none adored her the way Charles had. Nights were lonely. Memories haunted them both. But love, true love, has a way of finding its way back. One evening, life brought them together again. They locked eyes across a crowded place, and everything they had been trying to bury came rushing back. The anger, the pain, the longing, but above all, the love. They talked, at first with hesitation, then with tears, then with laughter. Adaora confessed her fears, her shame, her insecurities. Charles held her hand and confessed his hurt, his disappointment, but also his unshaken love for her. This time, Adaora made a vow. No more hiding. No more shame. She would never again let anyone mock what they shared. If you give us another chance, I'll never be ashamed of our love, Charles, she said, staring into his eyes with his hands around her. From that day, she flaunted him proudly. In public, in private, at events, she held his hand firmly and introduced him without fear. He was hers, and she was his. Their love stood against gossip, against judgment, against age and appearances. And in the end, love won. Then one cool evening, Charles got on his knees and proposed. Without thinking twice, Adaora said yes to the one true man who has ever treated her as a queen despite what the world says. Months later, Adaora and Charles got married, a celebration that silenced all doubters. They lived happily, not because life was perfect, but because their love was stronger than every storm. At home, Adaora was respectful to Charles. She adored him and never made him feel like she was older. She appreciated and valued his input in almost every matter she had. Charles too never took advantage of her, he loved her with every fiber in him. Adaora had no insecurities because she knew that cute handsome young man was hers and hers alone. And so, in the city that doubted them, their story became a testament that love is not measured by age, but by respect, devotion, and the courage to hold on no matter what the world says.